There's a single money rule that separates people who build real wealth from people who work their entire lives and have nothing to show for it. It's not complicated. It's not some secret formula that rich people guard jealously. And honestly, it's so simple that when I tell you what it is, you're probably gonna think I'm wasting your time. But here's the thing, this one rule, if you actually follow it consistently, will do more for your financial future than reading 1,000 personal finance books or watching a million YouTube videos about investing strategies. The problem is that almost nobody actually follows this rule, even though everyone knows it exists. The rule is this: spend less than you earn and invest the difference. I know. You're sitting there thinking, that's it? That's the big secret? And yeah, that's it. But before you click away thinking this is too obvious to be useful, let me ask you something. If this rule is so simple and everyone knows about it, why are 78% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck? Why does the average person retire with less than $90,000 in savings after working for 4 decades? Why are people making six-figure salaries still drowning in debt and stressed about money? The answer is pretty uncomfortable. Most people don't actually follow this rule. They know it. They agree with it in theory. They might even tell other people to follow it. But when it comes to their own money and their own decisions, they completely ignore it. And that gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it is the difference between financial security and financial chaos. My name is Adam, and I help people understand money, behavior, and how to build real financial freedom. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Marcus. Marcus is 42 years old, makes $95,000 per year at his job, and somehow manages to have less than $8,000 in his savings account and about $23,000 in credit card debt. He's been working for 20 years. 20 years of full-time employment, steady paychecks, regular raises, and he has essentially nothing to show for it financially. Now, Marcus isn't stupid. He's not reckless. He doesn't have a gambling problem or any major vices that are draining his bank account. He's just a normal guy living what he thinks is a normal life. He has a decent apartment, a reasonable car payment, goes out to eat a few times a week, takes a vacation once a year, and buys the things he wants when he wants them. Nothing extravagant, nothing crazy, just normal spending. But here's what Marcus doesn't realize. His normal spending is slowly destroying his financial future. Because while Marcus knows he should spend less than he earns, he's never actually calculated whether he does. He just assumes that if he's not buying luxury cars or designer clothes, he must be doing okay. Meanwhile, every single month for the past 20 years, he's been spending roughly $400 more than he earns. And he's been putting that difference on credit cards. Do the math on that. $400 per month over 20 years is $96,000. But it's actually way worse than that because of interest. At an average credit card interest rate of 19%, that $400 monthly overspending doesn't just add up to $96,000. It compounds into a debt spiral that keeps Marcus trapped in a cycle where he's working harder every year, but somehow getting further behind financially. This is what happens when you don't follow the one rule. You work your entire life, earn good money, and end up with nothing because you were spending just slightly more than you earned for years without even realizing it. Now, let me tell you about someone completely different. We'll call her Jennifer. Jennifer makes $48,000 per year working as a librarian. She's 38 years old, and she has $127,000 in her retirement accounts and investment portfolio. She owns her car outright, has zero credit card debt, and could survive for 8 months without a paycheck using her emergency fund. How is this possible? Jennifer earns almost half of what Marcus earns. She should be struggling financially while Marcus is comfortable. But the opposite is true. Jennifer will retire as a millionaire, while Marcus will probably work until he's 70 and still worry about money. The difference is simple. Jennifer actually follows the one rule. She spends less than she earns and invests the difference. Every single month for the past 16 years, Jennifer has lived on about 70% of her income, and invested the other 30%. It doesn't matter if she gets a raise. It doesn't matter if she has a bad month. It doesn't matter if her friends are going on expensive trips. The rule is the rule, and she follows it without exception. Here's what's fascinating about this rule. It doesn't care about your income level. It doesn't care if you make $40,000 or $400,000 per year. It works exactly the same way regardless of how much money flows through your hands. The only thing that matters is that you spend less than you earn and invest the difference. Think about it this way. If you earn $50,000 per year and spend $45,000, you have $5,000 to invest. That's a 10% savings rate. If you earn $200,000 per year and spend $195,000, you also have $5,000 to invest. Same amount going into investments, but one person is earning 4 times as much as the other. Income doesn't determine wealth. The gap determines wealth. But here's where it gets really interesting. That person earning $50,000 and saving $5,000 is actually in way better financial shape than the person earning $200,000 and saving $5,000. Why? Because the person earning less has proven they can live on $45,000 per year. They only need to accumulate enough money to replace $45,000 in annual income to retire. The person earning $200,000 has proven they need $195,000 per year to maintain their lifestyle. They need to accumulate nearly 4 times as much wealth to retire comfortably. This is the part that blows people's minds when they really understand it. A higher income makes it easier to save money, but it also raises the bar for how much wealth you need to accumulate if you let your spending rise with your income. Most people completely miss this connection. They get a raise and immediately inflate their lifestyle, which means they need to save even more money to retire, which becomes harder because they're now spending more. According to a study from the Federal Reserve, households earning between $100,000 and $150,000 per year have a median net worth of about $340,000. That might sound impressive until you realize that many of these households have been earning 6 figures for years or even decades. They should have way more saved, but they've been violating the one rule by spending almost everything they earn. Meanwhile, households earning between $50,000 and $75,000 have a median net worth of about $135,000. That's obviously less than the higher earning group, but it's not proportionally less. The people earning $100,000 to $150,000 are earning roughly twice as much, but they only have about 2.5 times the net worth. They should have way more of a gap if they were actually following the rule consistently. This tells you everything you need to know about how most people handle money. They earn more and they spend more. The gap between earning and spending barely budges, so their wealth accumulation barely changes even though their income doubled. Here's another way to think about this rule that might make it click. Every dollar you spend is a dollar you could have invested, and every dollar you invest is a dollar that could work for you forever. When you buy a $5 coffee, you're not just spending $5. You're giving up the opportunity for that $5 to turn into $10, then $20, then $40 over the next few decades through compound growth. You're trading long-term financial freedom for short-term consumption. Now, I'm not saying you should never buy coffee or never spend money on things you enjoy. That's not realistic and it's not even desirable. Life is meant to be lived, not just endured while you accumulate money. But every spending decision is a trade-off, and most people never think about what they're trading. When you understand that spending $30,000 on a new car instead of $15,000 on a reliable used car isn't just about the $15,000 difference today, it's about giving up potentially $60,000 or more in future wealth. You start making different decisions. When you realize that spending an extra $200 per month on rent for a slightly nicer apartment means giving up $100,000 in retirement savings over 20 years. You start evaluating your priorities differently. The math is simple but powerful. If you invest $500 per month starting at age 25 and earn an average return of 7% annually, you'll have about $1.2 million by age 65. But if you spend that $500 instead and don't start investing until age 35, you'll only have about $550,000 at age 65. That 10-year delay in following the rule costs you $650,000. $650,000. But here's what really gets me about this rule. It's not just about the math, it's about the psychology. Following this rule requires you to do something that goes against every instinct modern consumer culture has programmed into you. You have to delay gratification. You have to say no to yourself. You have to watch other people buy things and do things that you could technically afford. And you have to choose not to join them because you're playing a different game. This is why most people fail at this rule, even though they know it exists. It's not because they don't understand it, it's because they lack the discipline to follow it consistently, especially when it conflicts with what they want right now. Think about your own life for a second. How many times have you justified a purchase by saying something like, "I work hard, I deserve this"? How many times have you convinced yourself that you'll start saving seriously next month, or after you get your next raise, or after you pay off this one credit card? How many times have you looked at your bank account and thought, "I have money sitting there doing nothing. I should spend some of it"? These are all ways your brain tries to sabotage the one rule. Your brain doesn't want to delay gratification. It wants pleasure now. It wants stuff now. It wants experiences now. Your brain is terrible at valuing future benefits over immediate rewards, which is why following this rule takes conscious effort and strong systems. According to behavioral economists, humans are wired to discount future rewards dramatically compared to immediate ones. Given the choice between $100 today or $200 in a year, most people take the $100 today, even though waiting would literally double their money with zero risk. This is called hyperbolic discounting, and it's the main reason people violate the one rule, even when they know better. But here's what's interesting. The people who actually build wealth aren't necessarily better at resisting temptation than everyone else. They just build systems that make following the rule automatic. They don't rely on willpower or motivation. They set up their finances so that spending less than they earn and investing the difference happens without them having to think about it or make decisions every month. Let me give you a concrete example of how this works. Remember Jennifer, the librarian with $127,000 saved? Here's her actual system. On the day Jennifer gets paid, her paycheck goes into her checking account. The next day, automatic transfers happen. 15% goes to her retirement account. 10% goes to her investment account. 5% goes to her emergency fund until it's fully funded. Then that 5% redirects to investments too. Those transfers happen before she pays rent, before she buys groceries, before she does anything else. What's left in her checking account after those automatic transfers is what Jennifer has to live on for the month. She doesn't budget every category. She doesn't track every expense. She just makes sure that whatever is left in her checking account covers her rent, utilities, food, and everything else. If she runs out of money before the end of the month, she cuts back on something. If she has money left over, that's bonus money she can spend guilt-free or save for something specific she wants. This system is brilliant because it makes following the rule the default option. Jennifer has to actively decide to break the rule and raid her investment accounts if she wants to overspend. The friction of having to transfer money back makes it way less likely that she'll violate the rule for impulse purchases or minor wants. Compare this to how most people handle money. They get paid, they pay their bills, they spend money on whatever they want throughout the month, and then if there's anything left over at the end of the month, they might save it. Spoiler alert, there's never anything left over. This is the backwards approach that keeps people broke. The one rule says spend less than you earn and invest the difference. It doesn't say earn money, spend money, and hope there's a difference to invest. The difference has to come first. You invest first, then you spend what's left. This completely flips the traditional approach on its head. Here's another powerful thing about following this rule consistently. It forces you to confront your spending and make real choices about your priorities. When you know that you only have a certain amount of money to spend each month, because you've already allocated everything else to savings and investments, you can't fool yourself about whether you can afford something. Most people never actually calculate whether they can afford their lifestyle. They just spend until their accounts are empty and then put additional spending on credit cards. They might earn $60,000 per year, but they're living a $68,000 per year lifestyle funded by debt accumulation. They technically can't afford their current life, but they never confront that reality because credit cards make it possible to live beyond your means for years before the consequences catch up with you. When you follow the one rule with a system like Jennifer's, you can't hide from reality. If your living expenses are higher than what's left after saving and investing, you either need to cut your expenses or increase your income. There's no third option where you just go into debt and hope it works out somehow. Let me give you some real numbers to illustrate why this rule is so powerful when you actually follow it. Let's say you're 30 years old and you earn $65,000 per year. After taxes, you're taking home about $4,000 per month. If you follow the one rule and invest 20% of your gross income, that's $13,000 per year, or about $1,083 per month. That leaves you with roughly $2,917 per month to live on. Is that enough? Well, if your rent is $1,200, your car payment is $300. You spend $400 on food, $200 on utilities, $100 on insurance, and you have $717 left for everything else. Then yeah, you can follow the rule. You're spending $3,183 per month, which is less than your $4,000 take-home pay, and you're investing the difference. But most people in this situation would look at that $717 and think of all the things they want to buy with it. They'd upgrade their apartment to one that costs $1,500. They'd finance a nicer car that costs $450 per month. They'd eat out more often and spend $600 on food instead of $400. They'd add premium cable and faster internet and spend $300 on utilities instead of $200. Suddenly, they're spending $4,267 per month, even though they only take home $4,000. They're violating the one rule by $267 per month, and they probably don't even realize it. Over 30 years, that difference is staggering. The person who follows the rule and invests $1,083 per month at a 7% return will have about $1.3 million at age 60. The person who violates the rule will have nothing saved and will probably have accumulated $96,000 in credit card debt from that $267 monthly overspending. That's not even accounting for the interest on that debt, which could easily push it over $150,000. Same income, same opportunities. One follows the rule, the other doesn't. One retires a millionaire, the other retires broke and in debt. That's how much this one simple rule matters. Here's something else that's important to understand about this rule. It gets easier the longer you follow it, not harder. When you first start living below your means and investing the difference, it feels restrictive. You're saying no to things your friends are buying. You're making sacrifices that other people aren't making. It can feel like you're missing out. But something interesting happens after you've been following the rule for a few years. You start seeing the results. Your investment accounts start growing. Your net worth starts climbing. You start feeling the security that comes from having money saved. And that feeling becomes more rewarding than any purchase you could make. Meanwhile, The people who've been violating the rule start feeling the consequences. They're stressed about money. They're worried about unexpected expenses. They're realizing they haven't saved anything, and time is running out. The short-term pleasure they got from spending everything they earned gets replaced by long-term anxiety about their financial future. There's research backing this up. Studies on happiness and money consistently show that financial security contributes more to long-term life satisfaction than consumption does. Buying stuff gives you a temporary dopamine hit that fades quickly. Having financial security gives you a sustained sense of well-being that improves every aspect of your life. Think about it. What would improve your quality of life more? Buying a new iPhone every year, or having 6 months of expenses saved in an emergency fund so you never have to stress about unexpected costs? Leasing a luxury car, or having $200,000 in your retirement accounts at age 45? Eating at expensive restaurants twice a week, or knowing you can retire at 60 instead of working until you're 70? The answers are obvious when you frame them this way, but people make the opposite choices constantly because they're not thinking about trade-offs. They're just spending money when they have it without considering what they're giving up. Here's the reality that nobody wants to hear. If you're not following the one rule right now, you're making a choice. You're choosing current consumption over future financial freedom. You're choosing to work longer over retiring earlier. You're choosing financial stress over financial security. And that's fine if it's a conscious choice you're making with full awareness of the trade-offs. But for most people, it's not a conscious choice. It's just the default behavior they've fallen into without really thinking about it. The good news is that you can change this starting today. You don't need to wait until you earn more money. You don't need to pay off all your debt first. You don't need perfect conditions. You just need to start following the rule. Spend less than you earn and invest the difference. Start small if you need to. If you're currently saving nothing, start by saving 5% of your income. Once that becomes normal, increase it to 10%, then 15%, then 20%. The specific percentage matters less than the habit of actually following the rule consistently. Set up automatic transfers so you're not relying on willpower to save every month. Make investing the default action and spending the leftover option. Track your spending for 1 month to see where your money actually goes, because I guarantee you're spending more than you think in categories you'd never guess. Cut one unnecessary expense this week. Cancel one subscription you don't use. Skip one takeout meal and cook at home instead. Take that money you didn't spend and move it to your investment account. Feel what it's like to choose future financial freedom over present consumption, even just once. The one rule that changes everything isn't complicated. Spend less than you earn and invest the difference. That's it. But simple doesn't mean easy, and knowing the rule doesn't mean following it. The question isn't whether you understand this rule. The question is whether you're actually going to do something about it starting today. Because understanding how money works doesn't build wealth. Following the one rule builds wealth. Everything else is just noise.